Hello, I am Krishnamurthy Pammi. In this session, we are going to discuss on the topic Daily Stand-Up Meeting, the heartbeat of your Agile project journey. I use the word heartbeat because by just attending a team's stand-up meeting that happens every day just for 15 minutes in a day, you can actually get the heartbeat of team's current performance, current motivation levels, current blockers, where they need help and whether they can in a disciplined way achieve the project goals or not. All those indicators we can get just by attending their stand-up meeting. What we cannot get information from status reports, review meetings, we can definitely get by attending a team's daily stand-up meeting that happens just for 15 minutes in a day. Daily stand-up meeting forms the core engine of every mission where teams are working to achieve a goal. In projects or operations, we all are mandated to work with speed, agility, and quality. When we deal with people, it is important to know the summary of yesterday's work, the team's plan for today, and any blockers team has in their way. Daily stand-up meeting fulfills the same purpose. In Agile methodology, daily stand-up meeting is time-boxed for 15 minutes. In this meeting, each team member updates on what did I do yesterday. It's an elevator pitch on yesterday's summary. What will I do today? Again, it is an elevator pitch on today's plan for each individual. I am saying elevator pitch because this stand-up meeting need to be completed in 15 minutes. That's why these three questions, they will come up with elevator pitch related or high-level update on these three questions. The third one is what dependencies or impediments I have to fulfill my work so that I as an individual team member can coordinate with respective people within the team, or my Scrum Master can coordinate with other teams to get those dependencies or impediments resolved. In essence, daily stand-up meeting acts as an effective tracking event where we will have real-time, on-ground summary of yesterday's snapshot. It acts as a daily planning event where we will plan as a team for today. It provides clarity what dependencies, impediments we have that need to be resolved within the team or outside the team. Thus, it forms the core engine of every mission, that is projects or operations. In Agile, it forms as heart of the delivery engine. In this session, I am going to present 20 practical real-time scenarios as a coach I accumulated over my experience over these years. These 20 practical experiential enriched scenarios will enable you to predict the team's X-ray, the X-ray of the team's maturity, the team's mental health, the team's commitment, the team bonding, and the readiness of the team to meet the set goals. For this, you have to have an eye behind the eye. So, the front two eyes or the two eyes you use to observe what is going on in front of you during the stand-up meeting every day. The behind two eyes, that means eye behind the eye, these two eyes you will use to digest or synthesize the information and can identify team's X-ray indicators so that you can coach the teams towards better tomorrow. So, I request you to have eye behind the eye while explaining the scenarios I'm going to walk through in this webinar. So, as I said, we are going to take 20 practical scenarios and then we will understand the indicators for each of the listed scenarios. The first scenario is the daily stand-up meeting does not start on time more than 20% of the times. If it happens, it is an indicator for the problem with the team culture. It may so happen that Other agile events may also not get started on time and close on time. That means your sprint planning meetings, product backlog refinement meetings, sprint retrospective meetings, meaning those meetings won't start on time. There's a problem with the team culture. Okay. And if you think that daily stand-up meetings are not getting started on time, it may also be a problem with the commitment levels of the team when left free. That means if a manager status related person is observing them, then they'll come to the meeting and they're very prompt. If nobody is observing them, they won't act as a self-organized team, and they don't take the stand-up meeting as a priority. So there's a problem with the commitment levels or alignment levels of the team. And it may also be a scenario where it may not be a suitable time slot. For example, you may set up the stand-up meeting as 10 a.m., but probably people are traveling through the traffic and 10 a.m. may not be the right time. So probably we may have to change the time. That is the reason why people are unable to join the stand-up meeting on time. It may also be an indicator of planning because the team members are overworking. So when they work and they stretch late nights, it will be difficult for them to attend the stand-up meeting on time. So when people don't attend the stand-up meetings, or in this scenario, if the meeting does not start on time, so it is the indicator of these 4 scenarios. Let us take the next scenario. Certain team members, specific team members, may be absent regularly. It may be an indicator that they may not be motivated. Okay, there's a problem with their motivation. We have to deal that scenario offline. Or it may also be an indicator that those specific individuals may leave the team shortly. In a scenario, they may have certain deep personal problems, and certain people may have career related questions, or certain people may not be really aligned towards the team goals, so they are not happy. So we may have to coach them offline. So if in scenario wherein certain team members are absent regularly, so these are the indicators we can deduce from that pattern. Let us go to the third scenario. That is, certain team members dominate during the meeting. I mean, we will observe this scenario quite frequently. In a team consisting of 6 to 8 members, certain team members are always vocal and they tend to dominate others. So it may be an indicator that they are showing their superiority, and in this process they may restrict other team members to express their ideas as well. So in a scenario wherein certain team members show their superiority, other team members suppress their feelings, so the actual team talent may not come out of the team. So this is not a good indicator. The Scrum Master need to address it properly. And if people are dominating during the meetings, most probably their planning and estimation outcomes may also be incorrect, because certain individuals always talk, they always dominate, and even if some members express their risks and issues, other people may not give importance to this. They show off their experience and then just try to suppress the other individuals. In this process, the planning and estimation may not be the outcome of entire team. It may be the outcome of certain selected individuals. So, team may not able to achieve that targets. So planning and estimation outcomes may also be incorrect if you see a trend where certain team members are dominating during the meetings. So in a sense, collaboration is at risk. So it is a huge indicator for the Scrum Master or the management that, we need to coach these teams properly. Coming to the fourth scenario, the team is updating the Scrum Master alone if you are an Agile. If you are in a waterfall model, they are updating only the project manager. I have seen these scenarios wherein team comes and just update the Scrum Master. That means they only see the Scrum Master and observe. Other team members in that process, they may be disconnected. They may not be connected. So it is like, every person is updating their status to the Scrum Master. So this is a dangerous scenario. This is an indicator saying that, team members are working in silos. So even though just in a stand-up meeting, when team members are just updating the Scrum Master, it may be an indicator. If you go and see the reality on the ground, you may see a situation wherein team members are just working in their silos as if they are individual team members. There is no teaming. The team goal itself is at risk, and Scrum Master is still not agile. So Scrum Master has to facilitate intra-team communication. So if somebody is looking at him and presenting, he needs to use his soft skills to direct the eyesight so that, everybody updates to everybody. So these are the indicators if team is only observing or team is only providing updates to Scrum Master alone. The next indicator, a problem scenario, is team members restrict only to their updates. Again, fourth scenario and fifth scenario are connected, but slightly there is a change. In the fourth scenario, they are only presenting their updates to Scrum Master. In fifth scenario, even though Scrum Master is doing proper job, but still the team members restrict only to their updates. They wait for their turn, they update, and then again they get it back to their silence. So it is also an indicator that team members are working in silos. That means throughout the day, if you see, they'll be working in silos. Okay, and then they're not bothered about other team goals, whether other team members are able to complete their stories or not. They're not bothered. Similarly, that entire teamwork is at risk. Also, cross-learning is not happening within the team. So these kind of indicators a coach can reduce by just observing this pattern. Team members restrict only to their updates. Let's go to the next scenario. Intra-team impediments are not resolved quickly. So basically within the team, the dependencies or blockers need to be resolved. So in a stand-up meeting, the team members talk about their blockers, but they are not getting solved from day to day. It may be an indicator that those are really high priority blockers and it requires focused effort. And because people are busy with their own features or stories or requirements, they are not spending time for those blockers. So we really need to find a way that, those priority blockers need to be resolved. Maybe we need to identify a team friend wherein we can get some bandwidth if our team members are busy, or we need to work in a smarter way so that we can reprioritize certain things so that those blockers are addressed. Similarly, if the intra-team, that is within the team, if impediments or dependencies are not getting solved quickly, teamwork is not happening. So today the impediment or the blocker is there. Tomorrow also the blocker is there in the stand-up meeting. Day after tomorrow also there is a blocker. That means the teamwork is not happening. Also, there's an issue with commitment levels. Means on the ground you say, okay, it is my task, I complete it and I go. That kind of attitude you may observe. So intra-team impediments are not resolved quickly may indicate these kind of scenarios on the ground. What I'm saying is, by just observing these problematic scenarios, you are actually getting huge list of indicators for you to become a good coach for the teams. Next, the next scenario is inter-team. See, earlier we talked about intra, that means within the team. Now it is inter-team, means across the teams the impediments are not resolved quickly. Again, it may be a high priority blocker, it may be an organizational issue. So as an organization, the management need to address those things, especially certain test environments are blocked. These kind of blockers will come, so people can't proceed with their work. So this needs to be addressed at a senior level. Similarly, with a good amount of collaboration. Also, there may be an issue with the cross-team collaboration. That means within the team we may be working as a good teams, but across the teams, teams are not aligned, and there is a problem with the cross-team collaboration. So probably we need to identify different ways of resolving this issue. Similarly, certain times when team reports the impediments or dependencies on other teams, if they are not getting resolved quickly, it may so happen that Scrum Master is overloaded with multiple teams.
even though in Agile we'll say that Scrum Master need to be dedicated to a specific team, but on the ground we see a Scrum Master managing 5 teams, 6 teams, or 8 teams. Then in that situation, Scrum Master is not having proper time to work on those cross-team dependencies. So, or it may also happen that even though Scrum Master is doing good job in taking the dependencies on other teams to Scrum Meeting, but because Scrum Meeting is not properly facilitated, those are not getting resolved. Scrum Meetings may be just a report making teams or report forming teams rather than understanding the impediments or resolving the blockers. So when the inter-team impediments or dependencies are not resolved quickly, it is actually giving indicators for these kind of scenarios. The next one is Burndown drafts were not updated daily in the stand-ups. Those who are well conversant with Agile, you know what is Burndown draft. For others, I just wanted to highlight Burndown draft is every day you will come up and say, I have 223 hours of work left to meet my sprint goal. Again, sprint is the amount, it's usually a 2 weeks time frame. So for a usually 2 weeks time frame, you take a goal for the team. To achieve the team's goal, probably you may have to complete 9 stories, and the 9 stories may take 250 hours to start with, but you cross day after day. The 250 hours are to be done effort. The next day you may complete certain work. You say another 230 hours left. Next day you will come and say 210 hours worth of work is left. Next day it may be 180 hours worth of work still to be done. So Burndown draft always tracks day after day the amount of hours to be completed. So if they are not updated properly in the daily stand-up meeting, it may so happen that team is not serious about the team's goal. So it may so happen that your project, your sprint may be at risk, or your release goals may be at risk, or your project itself may be at risk. Similarly, the impediments are not resolved. So for example, you are waiting for a test environment to be up, but that test environment is not resumed back. So team cannot do anything. So such certain kind of impediments, if they are not resolved at faster rate, the amount to be completed will always be the same and even more day after day. So the people have to update that Burndown draft, and they are not updating because it's a culture, or daily planning is not happening, or stand-up meeting is not conducted properly. So if Burndown drafts are not updated in the stand-up, or they're not referred, then project goals are at risk. So it indicates this kind of problems for us. The next one is the quality of interaction that happened during the stand-up meeting. Okay, I'm just taking one scenario here, which is a positive scenario. Okay, one team member says, yesterday I worked on a feature A and I found very interesting insight. Look, he's actually using this particular team member using this kind of update. He's showing his subject matter expertise. He's also telling his elevator pitch in very well structured way, and he's enticing other people to have an interest on his update. So instead of a dummy update like I'm done with this task, I'm going to take up this task, that's a very dummy update. Instead of this, he's saying, look, I have completed on this feature and I found a very interesting observation which I'll update in a different meeting, but at the high level this is what I understood and I really liked it. So like this, whether it's good or bad, he's actually adding little flush, a meaningful flush to his update. That's a good quality of interaction. It talks about real subject matter experts are there. There's a respect for learning within the team. When there is a respect for learning, then only the subject matter experts will also be more relevant and connected, and real good work is happening within the team. So the quality of interactions happening within the team, they are the real indicators of how mature the team is in terms of domain knowledge or technical knowledge. Okay, now let's take another scenario. Okay, here he's talking about, I worked on an incident yesterday and I updated the incident status in the tool, and I spent 6 hours on this incident. It's just operational update. In this operational update, nothing others can show interest. Okay, so at one end, I talked about a scenario earlier where I said, look, everybody is restricting to their updates. It may so happen that even though other team members want to learn, the person who is actually presenting the update on his yesterday's snapshot or summary, he's quite operational. Like, I just worked on incident, it took 6 hours. What's there for others to learn? Instead, if you say, look, I worked on this incident, I observed this kind of incident pattern. Now I think probably we can take a problem ticket to resolve this kind of incident patterns. That's a good way of narrating his update of yesterday's snapshot. This will also create interest in other team members to listen to him. So the quality of interactions also need to get increased. So the quality of interactions talks about the team bonding, the subject matter expert within the team, and also the amount of coaching they have been coached, and also their mental health, how secure they are within the team. So depending on these levers, we can actually coach the team to improve the quality of interactions. Let's take the other scenario. Again, it's on quality of interactions only, but he's saying the feature requires in-depth testing. As a developer, I mocked that using test data. It's a positive indicator. Okay, he's basically talking about, he's connecting developer and QA collaboration. So he's updating the tester that when it comes to testing this particular feature, you need to really show certain attention towards this. Okay, so this is basically talking about cross collaboration between a developer and QA collaboration. But of course, in Agile, everybody is a developer, but I'm just talking about, when people are talking about this, they are not only talking about what they have witnessed yesterday, but they're also updating others. When it comes to testing it, other people need to be really alert in this area. Okay, the next one is, it's basically technical skill. He says we need a team friend from other teams so that we can take up other tech skill related tasks. For example, our team is working on .NET, but related to C++, there is a user story is there. So this gentleman in the team is saying, look, if you can have a team friend from other team where 20% of that particular person's bandwidth is allocated for our team, probably by coordinating with him, we can as well complete the task, because predominantly this requirement requires .NET skill, but some amount of other technical skill is also required, so we can take their support. So here this particular gentleman is showing interest to cross skill on other technology. It's a good indicator. So cross-skilling on technology. Coming back to the other quality of interactions. Earlier slide, we talked about technical related stretch. Now here, the team members are presenting on domain related stretch. That is, he's saying, we need a team friend from other teams so that we can take up other domain related tasks. So far, we have been working on, let's say, promotion related or customer relationship related, but now I can as well take certain tasks related to login related functionality as well. So here, using this particular interaction, this particular team member is saying, look, I wanted to cross skill on feature teams, not just on CRM features. We also need to be groomed towards other features like login kind of a thing. So here, this kind of update, it tells the coach that, yes, team is ready or interested to cross skill on feature teams. Okay. The next one is, again, the quality of interaction. So certain individual member is saying, you can be off tomorrow, I can pick up your story. That's a wonderful update. It talks about there's a good bonding, everybody understands each other, cross skilling has already happened because this gentleman is already know the technology what other person knows. So he's saying, okay, you can be off tomorrow, I can pick up your story. And team has a common goal, means it is not my story or my requirement or your requirement, it is our goal. By end of this sprint, we have to complete as a team. That kind of sense is there. It's a very good update. Okay, so when this kind of interactions are happening, then this is the indicator for this kind of scenarios. Now the next one is another update here is new stories added during middle of the sprint. It's not a good indicator because ad hoc work allocation is happening. It may so happen that the organization may keep on adding ad hoc stories in the middle of the sprint. Then probably instead of saying, look, during the sprint we can't take up new stories. If that is possible, you prevent it. If it's not possible, business requires us to also work on certain incidents during the process, and we can't plan them at the beginning of the sprint, then probably Scrum Barn, that means 70% you pay attention to Scrum and 30% of bandwidth you allocate for these ad hoc related incidents. So let's make Scrum Barn as the preferred way rather than Scrum. I'm just saying, I'm taking these percentages like 70%, 30% as just an example. It can be depending upon the context. Again, my intent here is to tell you that certain amount of percentage we allocate for the Scrum, and where you can plan well before the sprint, and certain amount of percentage you dedicate it, saying that these many hours I'm keeping aside so that the organization or the business can assign to us during the sprint, so that within these hours we can solve these many incidents. This how we can basically address the organization's need. So Scrum may not be the preferred approach there. Maybe Scrum Barn may be the approach, or maybe Kanban may be the approach that we have to take. So probably these are the indicators for us. Coming back to the another scenario, like team is referring to definition of done on the team wall. That means definition of done means these are the list of steps that team should ensure that they are done before they say something is done. So I just want to take a scenario saying that no, one member comes and says I've completed a story. So team initially says, if somebody says a story is done, that means the story coding is done, unit testing is done, and functional testing is done, integration testing is done, and even regression testing is also done. Then only I say a story is done. If that is how a team says definition of done for them, then if somebody says I'm done with the story, that means everybody make sure that those checklist of items are already done. So this way it shows that team is quality conscious, team is matured, and team is very clear on when somebody says something is done. So it refers the maturity. And team refers definition of ready on the team's wall. Means definition of ready is there on the team's wall, and they refer to that during the stand-up meeting. What is definition of ready? That means if a product owner provides a story, it should adhere to the list of the items mentioned in the definition of ready. That means there's a concept called invest principle. You can take that. So the story should be as small as possible. It should be clear. The story should be written properly. There should be the acceptance criteria well written. All the mock-ups related to the story are provided, and the upstream dependencies and downstream dependencies are properly mentioned in the story. So all those items they will have, saying that a story is done only if it adheres to this checklist of items. So that checklist of item is called definition of ready. That definition of ready is pasted on the team's wall, and team, while talking about their updates, they refer to definition of ready. It says, team is matured. Product owner is providing definition of ready complaint stories, and the team is matured, and they even can say no to the product owner when the story is not definition of ready compliant. So it shows the maturity of the team. The next one is team follows working agreement. That means working agreements, meaning every team comes up saying that these are the list of the agreement that we should adhere to while working together. Okay, and they are following it or they are updating it. It shows that team is matured. They have a mutual respect for each other, and there's a disciplined team. For example, if there is any deviation to the working agreement, they take it during retrospectives and think about, okay, how can we modify our agreement so that we can come up with a better agreement, so that among us we can work in a most efficient way. So if team members are following working agreements, it's indicating that it's a disciplined team, self-respected and professional team, and quite mature team. The next scenario is team revisits progress on retrospective actions. For the people who are new to Agile, retrospective is something that team conducts at the end of the sprint, and they come up with a list of actions, what went well, what did not go well, and what can be changed. So they come up with a list of actions, and what is happening is that the team actually takes up those actions for the next or upcoming sprints. And during the stand-up meeting, if the team is actually constantly referring, how are we progressing on the actions we have taken out of the retrospective, that means they are adapting to the lessons learned. Okay. The next one is the team stand-up wall certain times looks clumsy like this. Okay, the stand-up board looks like this. So maybe I may be exaggerating here, but more or less it's like quite unorganized. It shows that team members are just following stand-up meeting just because they are mandated to do, just because they are asked to stand in front of the wall, but actually they are not gaining much from it. Okay, the structured stand-up meeting, the stand-up board looks like this. Now what to do? Like a product backlog item, there is a feature 1, user story A, user story B, user story C, user story D. Okay, so what to do, whether it's in progress, done. And so it's basically very structured. The structuredness of the stand-up board also talks about how disciplined team is and how well they're reaching their targets. So certain teams may also split the in progress into development in progress, testing in progress, and or any impediments or on hold. That kind of vertical lining also they come across. Just by observing the stand-up meeting, the stand-up boards, just by observing the stand-up boards, we can actually talk about how the team's readiness towards discipline, their commitment towards the sprint goal. I have scenario wherein certain team manager used to observe all the stand-up meetings, all the stand-up boards. Again, I repeat, a team manager used to go to all his stand-up boards of his team meetings after the stand-up meeting, and he used to observe stand-up boards. And I used to ask him, what are you observing? He says, look, by observing what did they do during the stand-up meeting, it gives me an indication of how my teams are progressing and how committed they are towards the goal. It's an excellent scenario that I had with that manager. So yes, stand-up board, by just observing how well they are structured, it provides a predictability about their discipline and about their commitment to meet the goal. And also how each requirement, I'm saying in Agile world it's a story, is structured, because in Agile we provide stories in terms of sticky notes. Okay, how are you writing the user stories on the sticky notes? For example, I see a lot of sticky notes wherein in a curly handwriting somebody writes this just the story title and nothing more to that. But in ideal world, it has to be like, what is the story title? What's the priority? High, medium, low? Or how much effort it requires? The estimated time? And who is the user who is responsible for completing this? So this kind of a thing, it shows the structure, it shows the discipline, it shows the DNA of the team's commitment, maturity, discipline and commitment towards meeting the goal. So how each story is written on the sticky notes also talks about the maturity of the teams. And finally, how the Burndown charts are presented. For example, let's take the scenario A. The green line in all these things is, it's an ideal line. The red one is what is the actual line. For example, in the scenario of A, it shows that the team started at the first day of the sprint. They took more time to complete, but ultimately they're able to meet the team's goal. It looks okay, but certain stories took more time than expected. In case of B, let's talk about the Burndown of B. It says that for initial days, they were dealing to solve a blocker, because of which they're not able to complete any user story. So there's no progress. So more or less in the initial days, their time was wasted. They're waiting on certain things. It shows this kind of, and suddenly they completed more work, and then again they are into the normal stream. So the initial part talks about they are waiting on certain thing, but the sudden steep shows that probably their estimation is not proper, or they must have used the time while they're waiting on certain things in a different way, so that as soon as that blocker is done, they are actually able to complete most of the work as expected. So it talks about certain insight into the team's ability to get things done. Similarly, if you see the C chart, it says that they could complete so many things. I mean, they complete well, means till first initial 4 days, like if you see it's the first 4 days, they completed things fast. That means there's a problem with the estimation. Probably they must have overestimated for those stories. Ideally speaking, they could achieve this a little early. But again, suddenly there's a spike up. Maybe they are added with extra work, ad hoc work during this point in time. So it talks about that kind of insight. Similarly, if you see D says it's they are keeping on waiting on certain impediment or blocker. They could able to complete little bit work, and finally they just got done everything. This is a quite unhealthy trend to observe. Okay, the next one is E. The E says both ideal line and actual things of done, they both are same. This says that it cannot be like this, because in ideal world you can't just complete things on just as expected. So again, it talks about certain insights about the team. We need to really get into the team's retrospectives. Okay, so and then again, if you come to F, it talks about initial days they are waiting on certain things, their work is not progressing, suddenly they completed everything. This is wrong. So by just observing the patterns of Burndown chart, you can actually understand beautiful insights of the team's way of working that you can't deduce or infer from the status reports or status meetings. So these are the patterns that you can observe during stand-up meeting. As I said, you need to have eye behind the eye. With the first 2 eyes, you will be observing what is happening in front of you. With the behind 2 eyes, you will be actually deducing what you observed with your first 2 eyes, and you keep on thinking what this indicates. Okay, how as a coach I can help. Okay, so you can understand, okay, these are the parameters, these are the indicators this is actually talking about. Instead of just blaming a person or a tool, why not we understand the genuineness of the context? Okay, so how can we help the teams for a better tomorrow? These are the indicators we are getting by just observing a 15-minute stand-up meeting. So again, I'm saying, by going to a stand-up meeting for 15 minutes and just observing how teams are interacting with each other, right from when they meet, okay, till how they conclude their stand-up meeting. It talks about their X-ray of their mental health, their team bonding, their way of working, their estimation, their planning capabilities, and how people are interacting with each other. This talks about the heartbeat of your team, the heartbeat of just not the team, it's the heartbeat of your entire project agile journey. So we have to learn to drive these stand-up meetings efficiently by acting on those indicators so that we can have a better tomorrow. We don't find surprises in the end. Just by observing that 15 minutes stand-up meeting on the ground, you can get the pulse, the X-ray of the team, and you can drive towards better tomorrow.
I thank your interest to learn, and I look forward to add more value add sessions in future. Thank you.